Hello everybody, I'm looking at Wayfinder. Now this is actually Wayfinder Echoes, the updated version. This is made by Airship Syndicate and has been updated since they split with Digital Extremes. They originally made Wayfinder as a live service online always game, and they've changed it somewhat. Now, I had mixed feelings about the original. Now, Airship Syndicate are a developer that I have liked for a long time. They originally started by making the Darksiders world. They weren't Airship at the time, but they did change into Airship after a while. They made Darksiders 1 and 2. They didn't make Darksiders 3, and to be honest, I wasn't overly impressed with Darksiders 3, but they were brought back for Darksiders Genesis. So when they said they were going to be releasing a new game, I was quite excited. I followed the game considerably, and when they announced Founders Packs, I did buy one, and I got to play the early access stroke beta version. And as I said, I had mixed feelings about it. It was okay, but it definitely wasn't what I was expecting from such an esteemed developer as far as I was concerned. That being said, the art style was okay. I don't mind cartoony graphics, as I say. I really like Darksiders. But I really wasn't overly impressed with the progression or the fact that the game kind of felt a little bit empty. There was not much to do. Now, I knew it was early access stroke beta. I say it like that because I can't actually remember whether it was early access or beta. They keep saying beta, but I'm pretty certain it was an early access game because you don't usually pay for a beta. Anyway, like I say, you ended up basically either spending hours and hours and hours grinding to unlock cores and etc. to find new characters. When you changed character, it didn't reset the story, but it did reset your progression all the way to the lowest level, and I mean character progression. So you would have a level 1 character doing story missions that were set for your level 16, for example, which I always find really, really disappointing. Now, unfortunately, that hasn't changed for this, but I will go into that a little bit more shortly. On top of that, you had the same situation with weapons. So you would basically have to find parts to build weapons, etc. Or you could buy them in the store, and this is where the really bad bits come in. So originally this was, as I say, a live service game, and it did have an online store where you could buy with real money certain items. Now that included characters, and it included weapon skins and weapons. Now I did buy some because I was originally intending to cover this game on my old channel, and I wanted to basically show what you could get for your money. Unfortunately, as I say, it kind of died when they split with Digital Extremes, and it ended up that the game was remade into a single player stroke co-op game. And again, I'm saying that a little bit strangely, simply because it is a single player first and foremost, but you can invite friends to join you, so you no longer get other players running around the world. I'm unsure how I feel about that either, because I did like the fact you could just bump into other players running around the world and killing things. I like that about open world games. I like it in Diablo, I like it in New World, which I'm currently playing the beta of that. I do like that sort of situation. But I don't like it if it's tied to a game which forces you to either grind ridiculous amounts just to get another playable character. I don't mind if it's to get like top tier legendary unique weapons, but if it's to actually get something that's a playstyle you might enjoy, I find that grating. So weapon types and characters should never be locked behind that sort of grind. You should be able to pick a character type that you enjoy playing, whether that be rogue, mage or warrior, and you should be able to pick the weapon type you enjoy, whether that be sword and shield, greatsword, staff, whatever it might be. They have changed that in this game, I'm glad to say, so you now can find weapons while you're going around. The actual drop icons are still the same, which is a little bit disappointing. I would have liked to have seen basically the item drop on the floor, so it looks like the item you're about to pick up, but you don't, unfortunately. But let's move on to the actual gameplay. So it does seem more story focused now, and being a single player game, that does make complete sense. There are a lot of side quests, and the main story, although it's the same story that it originally was, it seems to have more presence because you're kind of playing it on your own and in sequence. I don't know, maybe that's just my impression after quite a while break from the game as they'd taken it offline. You can see from what's on screen that your character movement and animation is relatively decent. The environments are quite nice, as I say, cartoony, but that again isn't a problem for me. And the combat is pretty good. You do have some little stutters like you just saw there, but it seems to be very, very infrequently. In fact, I think in my entire recording of gameplay, it was just that little section there that I had those problems. But other than that, it does seem to work pretty well. Now, you do have the same sort of world events that you used to have, but they have dialed them back considerably, bearing in mind it's now a solo game rather than multiplayer. These sorts of events where you had these shadow spheres, or whatever you want to call it, they used to be an absolute nightmare because they were set for kind of 3 to 5 players, so if you came across one on your own, you were pretty much done for. Whereas now, because they are a solo game, they are much easier to beat. And I don't mean they're stupidly easy, you still do get a challenge, especially later on, but they are a lot easier than they were. That being said, the mechanics are exactly the same. And I don't know what I was expecting when they said they were going to remake the game or rework on the game. I was kind of expecting them to do quite a massive overhaul, whereas literally all they've done is they've removed the store, they've removed the always online aspect, and they've turned it into a single player, linear-ish progression game where you now find weapons and you now find armor pieces. And somehow I'm unlocking characters, but to be honest, I don't even know how I'm doing that. It's possibly locked to your character level. Now, I mentioned that you can't just select whatever character you want, and that's exactly the same as it was. Basically, you start with one of 3 characters, and you can swap between those characters anytime you want within the game. The problem is that that character has its own level. It's not just a skin or a skill set, it's a literal character. Now in games like Diablo, you create a character and then you can create multiple other characters. In this game, you create a character and then you unlock other characters as you go, but you can then swap to them whenever you want to. And as I said, the problem is that if you're in an area or a stage of the main story where you're using level 16 missions, for example, your level 1 character is really going to struggle. And I know the answer to that is we'll just go around and just kill stuff until you get up level, but that kind of means you can't play the game's story until you've got your new character up to level. And if that's the character that you want to use because its skill set and all of that is your playstyle, it means you have to pause your game or pause your story play until you've got to the right level to carry on. I do not like that in the slightest, personally. Now that being said, I've not played this multiplayer. I've not invited friends or played this with anybody. And it might be completely different when you do team up with other players. I do like playing this sort of game with friends, to be honest. It's a bit like Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. I enjoy playing that operations with friends. I enjoy playing Diablo with friends. I enjoy playing lots of different games with friends. The games that I tend to put down more often are games that are solo, like Horizon Forbidden West or Ghost of Tsushima, because when your friends come online, you don't just want to be talking to them while you're playing a solo game. I will play this game in multiplayer at some point. I do have some friends who play it, so it will be good to just see what it's like with the multiplayer. But as it stands at the moment, it is not a bad game. I think they should have changed more than they have, but maybe that will come in time. Obviously, it is only just re-released after they'd taken it off the store, so we will see what they have in mind for the future of this franchise. I was surprised, if I'm being honest, that they decided to rework on this after they split from Digital Extremes. I thought with the negative reaction they had received from a lot of people that they would probably have just abandoned it and gone to do something else, maybe another Darksiders-like game. But I'm happy in a way that they did carry on with this, because I want them to make something of it. I do not want them to turn into one of those studios that abandons a game, brings something else out, that doesn't do well either, and they abandon that as well. I want them to be able to work on something, get it to a stage where everyone's happy, and then start something new, or just make new parts to this game. There is nothing stopping developers these days from continually upgrading games. World of Warcraft has proved that. You can have a game which is 20 years old and still have players playing it and still make updates for it. There is no reason to make a new game every few years. You can just continue to expand on the one you have. And in some respects, I think that is a better model, because not everyone wants a brand new game. People just want an improved version of the one they're playing. Everyone has seen games where everyone's saying, we need a new game, we need a new game, we need number 2 of this game. And then when number 2 comes out, they basically say, well, this isn't like the original, I don't like it. So just improve and update the original. I think the prime example of that is, for me, The Division. The Division I loved. The Division 2 I was not as keen on. The Crew I loved. The Crew 2 I was not as keen on. And it's happened in a number of other games. Now, I would say that the actual game which broke that mould would be Space Marine, because Space Marine 2 is absolutely amazing. What I would say, though, is I would be quite happy if they just updated and expanded on Space Marine 2 for the next 10 years, maybe even 20 years. They don't need to make a Space Marine 3. They can just make new story content to bolt onto it. Expansions, that sort of thing. And to be perfectly honest, that for me makes absolute sense. Continue expanding on what people like. And I hope they do that with this game, because, like I say, I'm still not quite sure on how I feel about this game, but at the same time, it's not bad. I like the aesthetic. I think they should expand on it, have more weapons, more items. They should have more characters. Maybe they should allow you to build actually more characters, so you could have different loads, rather than just one game where the characters are all within that one game. Do a Diablo style system. There's lots of things they can do, and I think there's nothing really stopping them from doing. Now that's enough from me. I will say that I am actually playing this in performance mode. I will possibly do a video in the future in quality mode, because there are some subtle differences. But before we do that, let's just have a look at what they've done with the progression system for your character. So the actual menus themselves are very similar. You have your character, you have a character collection. These are the ones that I've unlocked, as I said before. There's 2 that I haven't unlocked, and I'm not quite sure how to. but you get your 7 characters to start. Now Grendel, the one on the end, is a new character that wasn't in the beta, so this is a brand new character. We have potions and accessories we can change. The armor itself is just visual, as far as I can tell. I can't actually see that it does anything other than visual changes. And your weapon, again, can be quite visual, but I need to find new ones because I've only got the basic one this time. Now you have your active abilities, but you also now get these things called talents. Now this wasn't in the original game. This wasn't in Wayfinder when it was an online only live service game. And these seem to be kind of like a passive skill tree that you would find in things like Diablo or Path of Exile. And it's very much tied to individual characters. I do apologise, I forgot to mute my phone. So each character will have their own talent tree, and each of these talent trees you can scale to whichever type of character you want to build. So I want to go a very defensive character for Wingrave, but I could have gone very attack focused or balanced. I'm going to go defensive. You have these accolades, which again I'm not entirely sure how these work. I think you only unlock this talent tree at level 9. I haven't seen it in that list before I got to level 9, and I only had 1 point, so I'm assuming that level 9 is where you got that point. Who knows? I will probably do an update to this later on just to go through that. But as far as the actual progression of your character is concerned, it's so much more advanced than it used to be, and that is a good thing, because before it was literally affinity, which is on screen now, and your active abilities. That was it. There was nothing else behind it. And that kind of made your characters quite two-dimensional. You couldn't really make a unique build because everyone who played Wingrave had the same talents. Everyone who played Wingrave had access to the same affinities. Now, although you have access to the same talents these days, there's so many of them that it would be highly unlikely that you and a friend would pick exactly the same thing. So for me, that is a very good progression system that does mean you're going to get variety in builds. And if you want to make a second game or second character, you can make a different version. But there we go. That is my first new look, if that's even the right way to say it. That's my first look at the updated version of Wayfinder. As I said, currently mixed feelings about it, but I'm sure as I play more of it, I will have a better idea. I've only played about 5 hours since the update, so not long at all, especially in a game of this size. I will play quite considerably more and potentially do another video to update you guys on what it's like. But so far, so good. If you've enjoyed the video, please do click the like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and click the notification bell icon. Leave me a comment down below, let me know what you think, and I will see you for my next video very soon. You all take care, bye for now.